Think we're live. How's it going, everyone? How's it going, chat? I think we're gonna start right off. Just out of the gate, we have a lot of questions to get through, so let's just get started. Hopefully, everyone had time to gather in, but this will be a VOD, so you guys can always catch this later at a different time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Let's Chat about Fortnite Ecosystem. I'm Matthew Zanazzo, though many of you know me as Immature. I'll be your host today, and I'm here to represent the Fortnite creative community. Over the past 3 days, I've read through hundreds of your comments and questions and have carefully curated the most popular topics that need answers. Before we dive in, I'd like to invite our guests to introduce themselves. Please welcome Saxs and Kent.
I'm cut off. Hey, I'm Saxs. I'm trying to like stay in the frame here. There we go. Yeah, I'm Saxs. I lead the Fortnite ecosystem and UEFN, creator economy, sort of a little bit of everything. Like we're psyched to be here. Like this is long overdue. I've tried to find a forum where we can have more open discussions and sort of take questions and just talk about what we see going on, listen to like all the things that's stirring up in the community from our creators and from our players, and just see if we can just get a better dialogue going, like between us, like the team and creators, because ultimately, like we're making this place for players, and we're making this place for creators, we're making this place for ourselves. So without like a good open communication flow, it's quite difficult. So we've always used TDC and we've always used like Unreal Fest, and I meet with a lot of creators sort of in one-on-one conversations, but this seems to be like a good opportunity just to talk about some of the tougher issues in our community. I think like when we decided to do this last week, it was more about like how can we find a format where it can be dialogue? It's not just monologue. And I think we've had a tendency to do a lot of blog posts, a whole lot of sort of definitive statements that are late, that are not exhaustive, that we try to sort of make as flexible as possible, but it's never what people want. So this is 2.0, where we're hoping to like to have some of those conversations, even if they're not popular, like even if the information is not necessarily exactly what you wanted to hear, but at least it's straightforward, hopefully, that this is how we think about UEFN, and this is how we think about Discover, this is how we think about the economy, this is how we think about creators. So nothing's off limits. And we invited like you, Immature, to 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 go and noodle on us. And my good friend Kent is here too. Kent, you can go.
Great to be here. My computer just blue screened at my other setup, so I'm going to plug in my mic here in a second, so my quality is going to improve. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I've been in Epic almost 6 years now, and I've been working on Fortnite Creative and UGC for about 4 of the last 6. Talking with creators is my favorite part of the job, and we're super excited to talk about what we have in store for Discover and many other things. I'm going to camera off here for about 20 seconds, and I'll be right back.
All right.
This is the way Kent leaves me.
Yep.
Awesome.
Just you now, Saxs.
I thought I could rely on him, but no.
No pressure. No pressure. No.
We've all used the old blue screen. Yeah.
The old that excuse. Hate when that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. He's quick. He's quick with it. So
He just accused me of like ditching me.
Oh, I heard. The sound never stopped coming through. I'm aware. Wouldn't be the first time you've accused me, but I've been accused of worse.
Glad you're back.
You sound good. You sound better. So let's just dive into it. So thank you both, Saxs and Kent. And today we're diving into the Fortnite ecosystem, addressing the critical issues that matter most to all of us. We'll begin by discussing these top questions, and then we'll leave the last 15 minutes for questions from chat. I ask that you keep your questions professional and constructive to help us maintain a productive conversation. Let's get started and chat about the Fortnite ecosystem. So this was by far one of the most popular questions, and it's about improving discovery overall. This question's from 31 Asha. What improvements can be made to discovery to ensure that quality maps from creators of all sizes receive the visibility they deserve?
Ken can do specifics. This happens to be both our passion areas, but this is also his job. The I I think what is the top level goal, like the reason why we believe we are a very successful ecosystem is that we try never to lose sight of what's special about Fortnite is it is the place that's made to have fun with your friends. That is it's not about Battle Royale. It's not about anything we at Epic particularly need or want or anything. Like what has made Fortnite successful is it is an unbeatable place to go with your friends to just have fun. And as such, like the most important thing we can do when people are there is to not waste their time, to connect them with content, the content they want, like specifically the content they want at the time they want it as fast as possible. That's our number one goal. Like when we talk about Discover and we talk about UEFN and we talk about what we promote and don't promote, it's not it's not about like what like necessarily what we need or what we want because players know what they want. Like when the minute we lose touch of that really the true goal here is to connect players with content, we will lose our way. So I think hopefully through a lot of the answers you will hear that the signals we are taking are very much player oriented. They're very much like they're meant for the fun per minute optimization of like when you go to Fortnite, like we want to do our very, very best that hour you spent 2 hours, 30 minutes, 10 minutes is the best time you could spend. Um, so if you want to talk about the specifics, but that's sort of the light that I want to put around it. That when I ask Kent, like, do we feel like people are having more fun like with these changes that we just did, whatever they are, that's always a metric.
No, I think Saxs touches on like I think one of the foundational challenges with Discover, which is it's all about like a player-centric view of quality, like what the players love, we want to show them, and we want to show them content that's boundary pushing and expanding the platform as well. But we first and foremost, we're there to try to have the Fortnite fan base have a great time playing Fortnite that day. And I think one of the points of tension, and I think all creators experience this sometimes when they make really boundary pushing things, including Epic, is that what we think is fun and super exciting might not actually resonate with the players at the level we'd hope. And so when we look at like specific tactical things this year, trying to really keep pushing on for you, that kind of top chunk of Discover, it's different for all of our players. We know we have a long ways to go there, and we want to keep sharpening that to basically promote quality. The analogy I use is like a garden left untended ends up with like weeds everywhere, and we want to ensure that like great plants that are distinct and trying to do the right thing and iterate over time to make something amazing have a chance to get that for you exposure. We also want to give players more agency in a bunch of ways. You saw this at the end of last year with Fortnite Interest, where we're trying to let you indicate what are you actually here for, what do you care about. We want to try to, this is an announcement, and the team building it, hopefully they know about it. But we want to add the option to indicate you're not interested in a recommendation, just so we feed you something that isn't a good match. We want to make sure you can tell us that. That's a great signal for us to have. And finally, we want to keep investing in favor to creator. We've seen so much adoption, way more than I ever thought. And we're seeing creators amass really awesome followings, whether they're content creators or map builders. And that ability to have this fan base you've built and cultivated and really have that like investment on the platform is something we're incredibly excited in. So that's a long answer, but those are a couple of things we're super excited about.
The good I think a favorite creator it's a good example of like the question specifically about quality maps from all creators, I think goes to we do want like we as much as anyone fall in love with like like what particular creators make. Like I'm completely lost in an island right now, and that I was also lost in the person's previous island, and I want to follow. I want to know when there's an update from that particular creator, and I want the creator to be able to build a community that they feel like they can foster, communicate with, or whatever. There will be a lot. You will see a lot of activity in that area to really deepen the relationship between creators and players directly in the tools that we're building. And to Ken's point, 2 years ago, I announced follow a creator on a stream, sort of inadvertently, because I really believe that like a big part of like when we say Discover needs to like to be better, period, is our inability to allow creators to do a lot of the work themselves. on how they build their community, how they speak to their community, how they update their community, and like a way out of this sort of single view into our ecosystem is to allow creators to cultivate their view.
And just to give some anecdata on that, what gets us so excited, like, there'll be a lot of talk, we'll talk about it, of the 50,000 impressions for a brand new or updated piece of content. What we're seeing with favorite a creator, because, when you publish a new map to your fans, it shows up prominently in their Discover. We've seen click-through rates as high as 70% against that, meaning that, we've seen creators with only 10,000, 20,000 favorites over their lifetime end up with hundreds and hundreds of CCU on their brand new games, driven by that row, driving a 70% conversion. It's like, holy cow, I love this creator. I can't wait to check out their new game. And for us, that's the best of every world, because you get your content test among your fans, the people most likely to love it, as well as your fans get to have that connection with you and feel like this person is an active part of why I love Fortnite.
No, great answers. We're gonna we have a few more questions that probably we'll dive in a little more specific on some of that stuff. So hopefully we'll get to that later. Let's jump on into our next question. So this one's around shadow banning concerns. Again, this was very highly asked, and so Morale's question is: some maps never hit discovery. Some go multiple maps without hitting discovery. Is there such a thing as shadow banning? Basically, is it real?
Unequivocally, we do not shadow ban creators. We don't even have who the creator is as something we can use in the algorithm to create those rows. I don't know if Saxs want to add anything, but
Yeah.
No, other than like, I think the very act of trying to pick and not pick like islands is, I don't know, it's not, it's something we take very serious, and as such, like there's the team that does that includes legal representation and everybody else that, like, for fairness reasons, that what we do should objectively be the right thing to feature at that moment with the criteria we picked. So shadow banning would go directly against that, because it would be like I don't know, like sort of an undercurrent that nobody could challenge. Like we want, like, if you see something then that's like an action against you, of course you should be able to challenge it. You couldn't do that if you're shadow banning. So that's a key reason why we don't do that.
in Discover, because we don't want to create incentives for people to make a bunch of new accounts. Discover is like content centric. We look at an island and we don't study like, oh, what else is going on with this creator? What else is going on here? It's like, no, this is the island. This is who seems to love it. This is the audience they seem to have, and who should we serve it to? And so, to Sax's point, we don't want to muddy that with other factors if we can avoid it.
Yeah, similar to shadow banning, there's not a multiplier either. If you've had 10 successful island, your 11th one is not favorited in, like, just because of that. Like, it's very much each island on its own, exactly as Kent just said.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're publishing multiple islands, each one is basically treated as the same, no matter, does that happen to be with, what if a creator, I have a lot of questions about this, but accounts that are publishing multiple maps a day, does that go within that same framework where they're all treated differently?
So the last question was about a creator level shadow ban, and that's
Yeah.
something that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We have spam filters in place because, as people like to point out on Twitter, there are creators who submit thousands of islands and they're basically copy and pasting the same thing over and over and submitting it over and over.
Yeah.
And so we do have filters for those islands. It's never at a creator level. It's looking at that island level. And if your island looks like something that has been copy and pasted and you've not really done anything to it, you may be flagged by that filter. And we look at the content in the island, the process you took in building that island, as well as like certain mechanics from your editor and from the Creative 1.0 editor, so we can understand what's actually going on in there. Is this one of 3,000 copy and paste, or is this a real attempt to make a great game?
Awesome. I think we've chosen not to throttle because it's really difficult to not stop like legitimate iterations or legitimate just big teams that are publishing many maps. Like when we come out with an update to Fortnite, and we, like, as we've done a few times, then like people have there's people need to be able to submit immediately all the islands to get back up and running again. Like, and if we had throttling in place or something, we just don't have a good mechanism for that. Instead, we try to detect on this like spam islands, basically, as Kent was saying.
And what I'll say, people love to point out, and I'm not going
Yeah.
to names here, but the examples of people submitting 3,000 plus islands, they like to joke there's some creators that are greater than 1% of the ecosystem. But if you actually look and see how many CCU does this creator have or these creators have, you'll see they have almost no players because the filters are working as intended. You can't send us thousands and thousands of the same map over and over and have success.
Cool. We might have to dive in a little. We might have that question again, but hey, I thought it was a good time to maybe bring it up at that time. So thank you for answering that. So the next question I have is around moderation automation. So this question is from Duos with Dads. How much of moderation is actually automated? There is somewhat of a follow up. So, for example, why are older or delisted maps flagged for issues like AFK or coins, while live maps with similar violations remain active?
Can you see the last part again?
Yeah. So this is just an example. So, and I don't know how large scale this is. So just take it for as it is. But for example, why are older or delisted maps flagged for issues? Because this was very recent where we've taken away AFK or coins and thumbnails, things like that. And you guys started pulling
Why are old and
violators.
delisted? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so as should, right? But apparently some that were delisted got pulled, but then there's some violations that are active today.
We make
Is-
mistakes, and it sounds like we made mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, like the rules are difficult. Like the AFK rules are difficult. Like the coin rules are that difficult to like. I don't know. It's a cat and mouse game to some extent. Like they're just there are scammers and there are people that want to spam. Like Kent was saying, our job is to try to find systematic ways to like to not feature those maps, even if they get accepted, that they don't have a prominent way to get into discovery. The second thing you asked about was about the automation.
Mhm.
I think we do use a lot of automation tools, obviously, that we get. I don't remember the number of submissions a day. Do you remember that, Kent?
It's thousands. Okay.
In the thousands, yeah. I think it's like 500 to 1,000 new islands and a multiple of that in updates. And each one of those get human eyes on it. Like so, it's not like we've chosen so far, and that might change in the future. But right now, there's human moderation on every single moderation decision. So we do use like when we use tools to make that faster, obviously, because again, thousands of iterations every day. Like we couldn't possibly like exhaustively scan every asset that's in there. So we use tools for that. And we're always trying to get better at that, obviously, and have better tools that detect easier, all that stuff. But there's always a human involved if there's a motivation decision.
And on the AFK coin stuff, I have a touch more context there. Not expert, but a little more context. That was thousands and thousands of islands to burn down after that decision came out, which is why it was possible to find islands that hadn't been hit yet. And to Sax's point, human review is part of the process. And while I also love the idea of being able to Thanos snap and everything disappears, it's a burn down process, not like a line in the sand, everything gone because of that human review nature.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
no.
it's also a nature of like we meet regularly. Like let's say there's a little group of us that meet up to essentially counter what's shooting up that is against the spirit of the rules that we have, but we don't have specific guidelines for yet. So we generally develop the guidelines pretty fast, implement them fast, and get into moderators fast. But the backlog, as Kent was saying, to get through all the existing content is pretty extreme. We think it's like definitely worth it to have a hand on the steering wheel, like firmly on like through this phase. Just like we want as much as anyone that quality content can be seen amongst a sea of things that just shouldn't be there. Like that doesn't help anybody.
And I think this goes back to, again, quality, where for a lot of our players, a red versus blue is an amazing use of 20 or 30 minutes. And they have a great time there. They report having a lot of fun there. They bring their friends there. They come back tomorrow. And so when we say quality, I think it's easy to think of art and really high-end impressive maps, which I love myself, but also ensuring that for our players, we're surfacing what they are enjoying. And again, when I read Twitter constantly, I don't write much, but I read constantly, probably to a fault. One of the most common points of dissonance is that audience-centric view of quality versus creator-centric or like developer-centric view of quality. I think that's something that we can do a better job communicating of as well.
All right. I appreciate that. So the next question I want to hop into, and we just have a lot of questions. I would kind of love to dive into some of these a little more. We'll see. Hopefully we have time, or if there's
Those we have to answer faster.
It sounds like we need to do more of this. It seems like the answer.
Well, I'm sure the community would love that as well. Maybe that's a separate topic, but yeah, if there is like follow-up questions, guys, please put them in the comments. And like I said, we're gonna leave some time at the end that maybe we can get to it. So, next question is around moderation and rule enforcement. So this was widely asked by the whole community, and it's basically, given concerns over scam maps, stolen IP, and misleading thumbnails and discovery, are there any plans to introduce stronger moderation or curation to prevent bad actors from exploiting the system?
I'm just thinking,
yeah, I think for me, one, like again, and for context, right? We're going to do more of these. As you saw at Unreal Fest, we have a moderation team. We're going to talk to those questions here, but we don't want to talk about things we don't know as deeply. What I can say from a Discover perspective, one of the drivers of satisfaction that we talk about, and if you saw the Unreal Fest talk or our documentation, we care about for every island, the attraction, the engagement, and the satisfaction. Basically, did you click on it? Did you play it? And did you have fun? In the simplest terms. When we find clickbait that promises one thing, a fantasy that the island then fails to deliver on, we see that island tend to struggle with satisfaction-oriented metrics, meaning that like, was I as a player, did I feel good about the time I spent on these maps? And I think over the course of this year, and even in the last couple of weeks, we want to keep up dialing as we gain confidence in our measures of satisfaction and give you transparency in the creator portal on how you're doing there. We want to up dial that satisfaction knob to ensure that just because you get someone to click on you doesn't mean that that's a great game. And we want to ensure that we're basically taking that more holistic view. That's not necessarily about the moderation front, but that's more about the scam or some of the other things described in your question there, Immature.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, like exactly what Kent said, like we try to err on the side of like what a player is telling us. Like so, like the brand rules exist to know there shouldn't be any stealing of thumbnails. Agreed. Like we have the what's it called? Original, I forget. Like what's the name of it?
The original asset enforcement process, or it's
something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
An impossible acronym. But why is it there? It's there so creators can say, you know what, like this is my thumbnail. I developed this. Like this is important to me, and have a process for like if that's actually what's happening, like for us to take that down. So that's the one side of it. If it's we have a process for like IP infringement, for example, like all those things are in place, but they're not something you can ask a moderator sitting and reviewing an island to say, like that moderator won't know, like, is this thumbnail originally from this person or that person necessarily, or does it actually infringe? Like it's tough to know. So, and part of it relies on vigilance on the creator side, and our promise is that we act on them and we review them. So we've had and like a tremendous amount of reports like using that original asset reporting, and we've done a lot of actions from that.
And I got the official name, UPAR, the unoriginal content reporting process.
There you go.
My bastardized or my bad version didn't get in there. Trying to keep it family friendly.
All right, so the next question is from still in this kind of the same topic. So North Prodigy 25 asks, will stricter measures be put in place to ban rule breakers and prevent them from making new accounts?
We try our best to make it like, because of the way you register a new account or whatever, like you need to have a tax ID in order to be a registered creator. Like the threshold is reasonably high to be like to have multiple accounts. But there's no effective way we could say you had this account, now you made this new email with this new name. Like there's no way for us to know that. Like that's just not. So at the end of the day, though, like that, like those accounts, like what they make at like in the end, we should catch that and we should not feature it. Like that's really not like what we have to be better at, not banning the person, because that's a really difficult, almost impossible task. Unless there's actual fraud, which is very different, then we are very serious about it. But for a scammy thing, then it's just very difficult. So we have to detect it at the island level. The other thing is we do a lot more, like we started in December, I think it was, to action off platform for scammy videos that are pushing players to maps. So there really was nothing wrong with the map itself, but there's a false promises about XP or exploits or whatever it is, with videos that sit on TikTok, YouTube, or whatever. And we've same thing. We've gone out and issued takedowns on I don't remember, 1,200 videos or something like that.
And that's a process we're trying to find the sweet spot on, because I could go on YouTube right now and find some maps that are
Yeah.
right on the edge of what's okay. Saw your video the other week there.
Thank you.
Sure,
Yeah.
great. And that's something I've been working with the community for long enough. I know this is an endless cat and mouse game, and we want to make sure we're erring on the side of like correct enforcement and not like enforcement for enforcement's sake. And I think that's the balance we're trying to strike. We don't want to be overly punitive for people trying to do something legitimate, even if they're trying to go right to the edge of a line in some areas.
I think it's all back to if we do our job and get people to favorite the creators they like, well, the chances of you seeing scammy maps goes way down, right? If we have strong signal about what you're looking for, it's a lot easier for us to serve up the right content. Like regionally, for example, like we've gotten much better at serving out content, like matching players with content in like large regions like Japan, Middle East, that have very different taste in content that we just weren't sophisticated enough to say, okay, these people really would enjoy this particular map. Let's match them together, and all that disincentivizes spamming, right? Because there's just no room for it if we have strong signal about what it is you came to play.
To talk about the regionalization, because I see this on Twitter all the time as well. This is something where our players are super global. Fortnite has this awesome audience of people all around the world. And if I'm someone playing Fortnite in Japan or Saudi Arabia or Mexico or a place where English is not the primary language, it is super important we surface content to you that you can actually play and understand. And when we look at the results from regionalizing most engaging and top rated, we saw click-through rates over 100% in some of these regions where it's like, oh, these are games I can actually understand and play now. This is great, which is one, a sign, man, we should have fixed that earlier. But two, when I see comments online like, oh, it's harder to go globally viral now, it's like, well, we still want to have mechanisms for that. But to Saxs's first kind of opening, fun per minute for our audience is kind of the core goal. And if we're showing you content that you don't understand, that's not great for fun per minute. We want to try to fix that.
Which, like, it's a good, I don't know, let's do a live example, which is what happened this weekend. We did 2 updates to to the recommender this weekend, and Kent and I have been going back and forth, and the team, like, of me snipping my recommendations and sending them back, going, like this, I definitely don't understand what's on screen here. Because we made a mistake and it started serving up content from like really popular content, but it didn't match my like languages I understand. So we're constantly tweaking in that area because we really believe that if we can get the recommended for you plus what the creators you follow, we're through half the battle already, of just having a safe row you can go to that'll serve you up things that are quality for you. With the focus on you, like the quality for you, which is where we haven't done particularly well, and when we're trying to get better there.
And to really nail that point, right? We want the big thing we're shifting with recommendations is trying to take that holistic view of quality, adding in satisfaction, adding in engagement, not just clicks, not just click-through rate or conversion against an audience, and really trying to make that reflect like your holistic map in all the way we know how to understand it. And we're working right now very closely with the creator portal to get that data of like, how are you doing on these core metrics of engagement, attraction, and satisfaction with your island on a very like updated, rapid basis, because we want to make sure you understand. It shouldn't be a mystery of those legs of the stool, where is your island strong? Where is it weak? Where are there opportunities to invest? And we want to really try to demystify that with both transparency on the creator portal side, and then making sure Discover is living up to that promise of servicing the content that is like holistically high quality for that audience. Again, that audience is key. If I'm a kid or someone playing Fortnite in Saudi Arabia, what is high quality to me is going to be really different than if I'm Saxs and I'm loving my tycoon maps that he can't stop playing. And I think that's like a really key thing.
A lie.
Well, I think what's important
Mildly addicted. Yes.
I think what's important on that question is topic is it's like you know about the issue. It's work in progress. You are going towards trying to stop some of these exploits, which I think is very important. And it sounds like a overall fix that could be coming that we've kind of talked about is the curation and making sure that people are getting pushed the right content.
Yeah. So I think there's one thing I want to say in the end. Like at the end of the day, like who like how does the engagement payout get paid out? Like who actually benefits from this, right? I think like that there's more questions about this in general, but just as a broad point, we review, including Tim, like every month we sit down and look at like the top 25, the movers, the genres, like we do a ton of breakdowns just to see, does this reflect where we saw value? And we go back and spot check over and over again. Like there's a whole team that is like essentially just be curious about everything you see that doesn't make any sense. Like look for things that doesn't look right to you. If this doesn't match what you expected, go back and look at it. And sort of the backstop against all this is like who actually gets paid from this. And I would, without making any claims that nobody's getting paid when they didn't deserve it. Like that's not what I'm saying. It's more to say we are attempting to be very mindful of steering the economy in a direction where we see the players are having fun. And that is incredibly important to us.
And maybe Saxs is a good time to talk about it. I think we're not super public around when we take a large demonetization action against people who are breaking the rules in egregious fashion, things like botting, etc. But that is something that does happen behind the scenes in terms of like, if you massively break the rules, your odds of getting a payout. This is not, if you are a creator trying to make a living, you should not massively break the rules. That is going to end badly for you.
Yeah.
I'd love to jump in on that too, because we've seen on like the Fortnite competitive side, they came out publicly and talked about banning someone, and they had an apology. All so and so. I know this is another sentiment of our community. Is that something possible we could do at for Fortnite Creative? Or thought is that a thought?
Yeah, I think
that'd be good to like get it out. Yeah. Sorry.
I think the cheating. So like I'm not familiar with the particular case. I think I don't know. It's really tricky like to do to announce any of this publicly other than talk about it. This is what happens. Mainly because like let's talk about botting. When botting happens, it happens like we see players playing that are not real players. Like yes, they happen to play a creator's map, but making the connection between those two is not trivial. So like that's really it. So what we can do is saying this activity is fraudulent, and we remove all the engagement from those islands. And if there's a connection to it, yeah, there's an action against the creator, but it's not like full transparency. It's not trivial to connect those two activities, like the fake players and what happens to the island. So unfortunately, like I don't know that. I don't know that that's like that there's been obvious cases where we could do what they did in Fortnite Creative. And I don't know if it's warranted, honestly. Like I think it's a small enough problem, has been a small enough problem. And we feel like we have a pretty good handle on it now. And we feel really good that we that we're not rewarding it, that we have good mechanisms to sort of siphon all that engagement back and distribute it amongst all of the creators. To be clear, like engagement that happened from any fraudulent activity, that money gets put back in the pool and it gets divided up by the rest of creators. So it's not like the money sort of, I don't know, back to Epic or anything like that. No, like it just takes that engagement out of the equation completely.
That's good to know.
And Immature, I think, is referencing some FNCS news I saw on X and internally this morning. And I think that's an amazing competitive sports league that we don't have much to do with, and how they want to approach, those professionals who have like this amazing talent versus developers building businesses. I think it's two different levers in terms of how we think about making it a great ecosystem.
Yeah, I think there's in my eyes, and it's just more of like if because now we're learning about this some of these things right now, right? And hopefully we can do more of these and learn about these things. But if maybe it will start thwarting off people if they know that there's the consequences, right? So I think that was just more. It would be cool if we could surface that if possible. But yeah, I understand it as a whole. Why that maybe not. It could be a bad idea as well. So
And I'll say it's very easy to fake a PayPal screenshot on Twitter as well. It's kind of say, "Oh, look what I did." But
Oh my God. Yeah, but even PayPal screenshots on Twitter of getting research to the ground, like
yeah.
by very skilled people to figure out is this real? Is what's happening here real? And like in that particular case, certainly not real.
Copy. All right. Um, we got a few more questions. We're going to get into the questions from the audience watching. So this one's also on the preventing map scams. So this is this was a very widely asked question. Many creators have asked about implementing a cap, and we've talked about this a little bit earlier on map publishing to prevent mass spamming. Just what are your thoughts on map publishing limits? Should a creator be able to publish 15 games in one day, for instance?
And so every time we think we have a proposal for that, somebody proves us wrong.
Mm,
Like we will go and test we have like part of the group is creative relations, and they have like they can do spot check to the creators we're pretty close with to just hear, like even for unreleased features, to just ask, hey, how would this sit with you? And generally, every time we've come up with something around throttling, it's that no, that wouldn't, like that would really screw us up. So that's why we haven't done it. If we'll see, like I still believe that there must there must be a way to detect earlier, like because we waste a lot of time on these maps. Like to Kent's point, there's a human to a human that has to sit as hundreds of these things come flying by of the same thing over and over again with no real like way to stop that because there's no effective rule against it. Yes, like we want to get to the point we don't have a mechanism right now.
And I think well as well when we look at prioritization, because there's as Saxs referenced, working on the weekends. We're not doing that for fun. We're doing that because we know we want to make things a lot better. And going down that list, when you look at those creators that are sending hundreds of maps, and you look at what those maps are actually getting player wise, it's not a ton because they're clearly abusing the system. It's very relatively easy to detect on certain sides. And so if we start to see those getting, 10,000 CCU or like really strong exposure and taking the spot from legitimate actors, that we start to really escalate that priority. It's just I've yet to find a report of that kind of credibly showing that actually taking a spot. It's very easy to go on Fortnite.gg or Fortnite.com and find, look, I went to this page and look at this bad thing I found, but show me the actual top of Discover where these things are getting a ton of promotion. And then we need to really figure out how we can limit it. But mercifully right now, we don't really see many examples.
Yeah, so a ton of noise, not a lot of signal.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm trying to
Also
think.
push back if you have another
Yeah, no,
perspective, like I'm all here.
I've seen some, and it's not from just it's from can be from even larger creators. Like it's not, but like I've seen they'll publish multiple maps of the same map. They will maybe change their thumbs a little bit here and there. They'll see which one sticks and then remove the other three or four, and then
Yeah.
they keep their one. So and I'm not trying to out anyone here, so I'm not going to. But basically, I think there
That
is
is so
some
like
examples,
so
but I don't know if there's anything that you could see on that side on your side for anything like that, or is it a thing where it just needs to be reported?
part of it is we see a lack of tooling. Like so when I look at that, I go, it sure would be nice if there was A/B testing.
Hmm. Oh
We're
yeah.
working on A/B testing on for aspects of what you publish. But in an ideal world, you can A/B test your thumbnail, you can A/B test your item, like your island name, your description, your like ideally there would be a device that could control A/B tests in your level, like in your island. So like all of it. Like I think part of it is I'm sure there's nefarious examples too, but I think part of it is just like a need to try to figure out like how like what do players react to? And it is pretty incredible. Like when we sit and we go through like a thumbnail that doesn't appeal to a player will tank an island, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like we see click-through rates of like, I don't know, what is the low?
One in 2,000 players are going and choosing, and no amount of featuring, no amount of epic picks or trending or whatever can save you when you're converting 1 out of 2,000 people.
But then other people, like if you convert 1 out of 50, well, like your funnel was like this big, right? But it like it really, really matters to find a thumbnail that appeals to players. No different than a movie poster. Like it's why like studios test like post like endlessly, because like you can have a creative vision all you want. If players don't see it, then they don't like this is not something that connects with them. Like you've just put your island at risk because you didn't know them, right? So I think there's a lot of that. We just don't provide enough tooling for people to make good decisions about what the thumbnail should be, the description should be, the island name should be. And we're working on that right now.
Awesome. Look, I want to get through like I have two really questions I really want to ask, and then so I can get to the questions here. So this one is about protecting IP and combating resellers. So this one's from Maestro Shark. What is Epic doing about increasing number of asset resellers and IP theft in Fortnite Creative?
We take them down whenever we see them immediately. So that's one. Like when they're reported, but I don't have a ton of data on that.
Yeah, it's also a bit out of my wheelhouse. What I'd offer is that just because, again, you can find a live link to something, when you want to take something down and be confident we're taking down the right thing, you need to investigate. You need to figure out what's going on. And so going back to the analogy of the Thanos snap, which I wish could exist, oftentimes when there are records of this or this is going on, there's broader investigations happening in the background that take a couple weeks or to make sure that we have conviction. This is like a true thing that is happening in this specific instance, rather than erring on the side of taking something down or applying pressure on something that actually is legitimate and we're just misunderstanding. And so that's where I think as well, the Thanos snap versus the gradual approach tends to be a thing.
Yeah, that's on the IP side. On the assets, on the selling of island data, I think is what you're referring to. Like we have a known issue that we are trying to plug as fast as we can around how we can scrape data. You can't scrape code, so you can't scrape the setup or verse or anything.
Yeah.
So at the end, you can get assets, like raw assets. I'm sure that helps you make an island. We shouldn't do it, but there's no way to copy an island per se. Without the assets. When we see those examples and they get reported to us, they get investigated, and if they are legitimate, not legitimate. If that's actually what's going on, then we serve takedowns for those, and we do that all the time. So we take it very serious. We're hoping we can do this systematically by essentially closing the gap. Believe it hurts us too. Like when we released Ballistic in December, like that island was scraped. I don't know, like a couple of days before when it sat and was ready to get published, and the whole island gets put out, but with a whole bunch of things missing, and it just puts us in a bad light. Like it sucks. Like
Yeah.
it really sucks. Like, but it's like one of those irritating loopholes. It's the same thing that when we every time we put out a new Fortnite client, like people like scrape it and they figure out like if we leave any hint of anything in there. I worked on Lego also before this, and like one little mistake by one developer is enough that like things start leaking because people have a very keen interest in Fortnite. So it's awesome. It's also like
Yeah.
it's quite the attack vector that we've left open that we're trying to plug it up.
And just to be clear,
on scraping assets for islands.
Yeah.
And in terms of takedowns, we take down when we have a valid report from the rights holder, and that's kind of like the key aspect there.
So this is the time where I would be asking from the comments. I want to ask this last question. I hope. I think again, this one's hugely asked by the community, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit time left for questions. So, this one's about reworking XP. Vordiant asks, could XP calibration be reworked to prevent exploitation, ensuring that payouts are based on genuine player engagement rather than easy manipulated metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to the off-platform work Saxs was referencing, where we're trying to take more seriously when people are basically lying to players online, you can earn super fast XP because calibration is going to catch that in a second. We are currently in the process of reworking the XP system. This thing came
Mm.
out November of 2021, and it has been, quite some time since then. And our creators and our platform has matured a lot. And we want to have an XP system that reflects that, while also not punishing the balance here, right? You don't want to over punish the small creators that have a passionate audience of 200 players or whatever it may be. We want to make sure they can give accolades XP. They can reward gameplay. That's a key part. Some people will say revert to playtime XP. But it's like, no, we want you to be able, if you get a pentakill or some amazing thing on a map, we want to be able to have that player have an awesome experience. It's like, wow, I did something great. I got XP for it. We've actually in the background tried to make it easier to calibrate. We started this about a year ago. And we've seen a huge increase. We used to, this time last year, we had 2,000 islands that were calibrated and could give accolades. Now we're north of 5,000 islands that can give XP and in that calibrated sense. And in the background, we're working on a basically rework to the backend system to ensure that we can basically make it a smoother process and also make it a tighter process where this is not something that is easily abused, or I can't make it harder to capture that YouTube thumbnail of you getting some giant XP drop in a map. Saxs, I don't know anything you'd add there.
No, other than we're working to broaden the tools that make like Quest in general, like the things, like what are the mechanisms by which you can give XP? By now they're pretty primitive. So the goal is that you can make the quests are featured all the way to the front end, like any other, like the quest that we do in Battle Royale. And if you follow a map, if you're playing a map, those quests essentially it becomes part of the ways you can get XP naturally is from all the creator maps.
All right, I'm gonna start. Man, I really hopefully we can do this another time. We have a lot of really cool, a lot of other topics I would love to dive into, but we're getting close on time. So these are some questions from the chat I want to read off here, and I don't actually know. We'll just get this one. We'll just start this one. So, are you guys looking at potentially adding a rating system to help the average player know what experiences are good to play, and as such? If so, how would you do it to stop it being abused?
It's funny. They just pointed out why it's so hard to add a rating system.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw Word Andrew ask this in a really thoughtful way as well. Listen, we are always looking for ways to understand quality better. This time last year, we didn't have recommend to a friend. We didn't have favorite a creator. We didn't have a bunch of systems that are kind of one step there. We're always looking at better ways to identify quality. The hard part with the rating system is exactly what the question describes, is that they're prone to brigading. They're prone to people trying to manipulate it and try to do really negative things with it. And so, of course, we want to find ways to showcase content to players that they feel confident clicking on. This is a great game. This is worth my time. I thought Nick A30 had some really thoughtful feedback here as well on Friday of, it's 5 minutes to get into a game. How do I up that conviction that this is a good use of my time? It's something we think about a lot. I think ratings are one lever there, but it's one that has such an obvious and challenging shadow side to it that we're trying to think of other alternatives. I don't know, Saxs, what else you'd add?
I think all this to say that I think is an incredibly important goal, because like one of the things that is on like high on my list is to, in order for it's to give islands that don't have a high CCU like a realistic chance for me to picking them, right? So it's being recommended to me. It's in my recommending feed of islands to choose from. If an island has 10 CCU, am I more likely to click on that or the one with 500? Well, probably the 500 one, because I don't have anything else that tells me qualitatively are people having fun. So I do think, and I ride Kent about this all the time on specific examples, like you're giving me these two choices, right? Help me make a better decision than I'm making right now. And again, I have the exact same comment as Nick A. Like I generally have a set amount of time that I can play. And I don't want to make the wrong choice. So like help me make like that choice where I feel like I discovered something, actually discovered, like no pun intended. But I didn't waste my time. So like, yeah, like I think qualitative feedback is going to be really important. And we're still experimenting with that.
Something we're exploring, note, not official, not shipping, but exploring, are videos on thumbnails and trying to bring that back.
Yeah.
Trailers, as Nick referenced in his tweet, like might not be the map. It's hard to understand that. We know that island details page needs some love. We know it's a kind of a relic of a couple of years ago. There's a lot of data you could put on there, a lot of interesting insights. And so trying to think about what we could put on that details page to help you make your decision as well.
Yeah, the island detail page is undergoing like active development right now. Like I have no announcement about when it's coming out, but what I've seen looks amazing.
Oh, well,
It's
excited
amazing.
for that.
But we're
That's
also like we constantly. I think that there are now islands that have been live for years, right? If you don't tell if there's no release log, if there's no last time it was updated, if there's no reason for me to come back, why would I come back when there's no easy way for a creator to really signal, hey, I did something different this time. Other than changing the thumbnail, but it's kind of like aggressive to go in and every time try to like screw around with the image you're trying to make, like that signifies your game. Like that, and like that has like pros and cons. I think it would be a lot better if the island detail page carried more weight.
And if you favorite creators, right, you show you have a relationship with this map or with this creator, big update comes out or a brand new game from that creator. We're also, again, actively exploring how do we make that really obvious for you? It's something awesome and one of your favorite games of all time just launched. That's amazing for players to know. How can we make that really clear for them?
Well, thank you, thank you. Okay, I'm kind of hitting us fast because of time here, but
Lightning
this is,
round.
but yes, this is a very common question I had and also in chat, so I really want to ask this. And it's around what why was the recent change to new and updated tab implemented? And can you give us any information on that? I mean, some people are reporting it seems that they're seeing a lot lower concurrence, and they think it's even possibly a worse idea, to adding that. I don't know if you have anything on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was hoping I'd get a chance to talk about it. Essentially, as the ecosystem has grown and we have a lot more creators and a lot more content, we were struggling to keep up with new and updated games coming in that we wanted to give exposure to that had no users or no impressions that we need to give a chance to. When we really dug into the problem from like kind of a first principles, get down to basics perspective, we found that thanks to an issue with our data pipeline, we were rotating games actually way too slow. We were massively over testing games that were in there, meaning, and what I mean by that, we can basically understand whether you are going to be a game players love with around 50,000 impressions, give or take. That's our kind of our current watermark. We were giving games that had no data around them or no evidence they were good or bad, upwards of 300,000 impressions for their test. And as we had all these games that were legitimate and were falling through the cracks and weren't getting any exposure, we were like, the much better option is to ensure we give a solid test that's accurate about every game, and be able to give twice as many games or 3 times as many games a chance. Thanks to those changes, we've seen, upwards of like at 100%, as of now, we hope that goes higher, but 100% lift in the amount of those new and updated games we can give a chance to every day. We went from right around 500 a day to nearly 1,000 plus a day, which is trying to keep up with that rate of islands and the rate of large updates coming in about islands people are still making big changes to. So I understand it stinks that you used to get 1,000 CCU if you were new and updated, but the goal of that row isn't trying to get you a huge audience. It's trying to understand, is this a most engaging game, a top rated game, a for you recommendation, a browse category, all that stuff. Go ahead.
And follow up on
I
that.
think
And
so.
this,
So the
oh, go
second
ahead.
part of that, like really quickly, is
Yeah.
like, so we blast these impressions to get the data so we know where to place, what row to place it in, basically. And the second part of that, well, it's data that is sort of part of the data soup that comes back to creators. Like we will very soon this month, knock on wood, into creator portal. Like once we finish that test and it blasts, you will get the result of that, like called out in creator portal that said, this is what happened. This is the click-through rate on your thumbnail. This is the like the session length. This is the retention will come the next day of people that came back to your island. So you get a much better chance to see this is how my island performed when a lot of people saw it, right? And why do we do 50,000 impressions? A lot of our islands are obviously multiplayer, and it only really works if there's enough people. You can
Yes.
form a party, right? Or you can matchmake in some way, shape, or form. So like it's really important that we blast these like in a very short amount of time. And it's really important we report that back as a single data point for the creators to go back in and say, you know what, my thumbnail is not working. You know what, like if people stay for 3 minutes on my map, we will also start reporting in this category, like the average is 7 minutes for a session. I'm making these numbers up, they're completely
Yeah.
random. But like so you get a chance to say like what does good look like in the tycoon row? Well, this is what good looks like. So I think you're going to see a lot more transparent. What we're working on is a lot more transparency across the board. Like there will be some big announcements in the next 3-4 months about that in particular.
Amazing.
That we really want creators to understand what's happening to the island, to understand what's happening in the ecosystem in general.
Um,
I think as the ecosystem becomes more competitive, and as there are way more creators than there were 2 years ago and way more than there were 5 years ago, we want to try to demystify those performance metrics so that just because it's more competitive doesn't mean it should be less understandable.
Now,
Ensuring you can basically connect those dots.
I think the regional point is really cool also. Like we see tremendous difference in how people play Fortnite, like everywhere. Like what islands resonate where, how much time is spent in UGC. As Ken said, there's with about 70,000 creators now. There was 24,000 2 years ago. Like we have an unbelievable amount of islands coming in. And in a lot of areas, like the percentage of time spent in UGC is very, very high. And why is it high? Well, because those players get the content they want, right? So a single algorithm has to be flexible enough to say, okay, you're telling us this is what you really want. Like you want in Japanese, these particular genres, this particular content from these particular creators, like we're going to go deep on that, right? And we like a big part of the for you, like that's call out that section is for us to be able to do that.
Awesome. Look, so if it can't, maybe this will be directed. If you answer this in like a minute, that'd be great. And then I'll probably have time for one more. So, in some people are reporting that they publish their map, but they never see the light of day in new and updated. Can you give us any insight to that?
Yeah, and it goes back to like basically one, if we don't have enough capacity, we just can't get to every game, which is why these changes were so important in terms of trying to basically increase that capacity there. So that's one big driver. The other, which again,
What is the percentage of games that are getting tested now? Just so to be specific.
and so basically, if you look like you are a legitimate game, meaning that you are kind of passing the filter for not being a low effort copy and paste, nothing done to the island game, or very little done to the island game, we're seeing upwards of like 97% of those games get to 50,000 impressions within their first week. The big thing though is I know as a creator, it's very unsatisfying to be like, there is this black box filter that is trying to detect whether my island is legitimate or not. And you can understand that by making that a transparent box, we will let the person sending 3,000 games to us abuse our systems. We have to figure out that cat and mouse game there. But essentially, one is we're out of capacity and we were unable to get to it. The other is that the island doesn't look like it's been a legitimate attempt, which means you should go and basically update the island and try to basically build more or make the island more feature rich in some capacity to basically increase your chances. The other thing here as well, and I know it's not the most satisfying answer, but we're seeing so much engagement with favorite a creator, and we're seeing just a couple thousand favorites you can just skip new content testing. You don't even need it because you can just launch your game and get reasonable concurrent users if your fans choose to engage with it. And I think that's the scaled solution long term, is matching content with their fans rather than trying to do blind algorithm for everyone trying to it's like the YouTube subscriber feed versus YouTuber. Here's a random video with no views. What sounds compelling to you?
I think the new and updated thing is an interesting one. Like part of it is that people have to figure out themselves if they're getting any exposure. Like I think serving it up in Creator Portal where you get to see this is exactly what happened. This is when it happened. Ideally, we will also tell you before that it happened, so it's scheduled. That's part of on the roadmap of what we want to signal to creators that we will test on this time. We will start testing. We will get like the 50,000 impressions, and then at that point you get inserted into the rows you would get into organically anyways, right? And you get that test back because then you can go and promote it on your socials. You can sort of be part of pushing at the same time as we're serving impressions, and you get the test afterwards. I think from us, the most important thing is that we give the data back in a way you can iterate, right? That's really what matters. And all the
That'll
words
be
that I said before around how do we detect Fortnite, how do we figure out what is a spam map and not a spam map? It sucks that we can't just say that.
yeah.
Like those detections, I get like that's really frustrating. The goal is to move though, like the threshold down to a point where we feel like when we scan that we don't miss up, like, that we don't mess up here. And we check that all the time to see is that filter catching things it shouldn't catch. And we encourage everybody to report like when my map wasn't picked up, why is that? There's a Slack channel for that of the when creators ask us this didn't get picked up, why didn't it get picked up? We go back and look at this is what happened. And sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes it's just like 2 minutes to make an island doesn't make an island.
Yeah.
I think as well, my dream as well, I have many dreams, but one dream is that as a creator, it's not a binary that I'm in Discover or out of Discover. Impressions should be like a knob that modulate up and down over time. And we're going to give you impression source in the creator portal really soon. And I'm really excited for people to see how powerful For You is. There are amazing games that basically, if you look on Fortnite.gg, you're not going to see any tabs in it, but they're getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of impressions a day from that For You spot because they have a niche audience that's awesome and loves their game. And long term, as we want Fortnite to be a place for all gamers, it'll become an ever more important way. And these binary in or out algorithms where I'm either in most engaging or I'm not, I'm in top rated or I'm not, we know that's a jagged edge solution and one that doesn't scale to 200,000 islands. And so that's where a lot of kind of perpetual investment comes in there.
No, thank you so much. I know we're over time. I want to ask, hopefully, with time for one last question. I think this will just be a good ending question. And unfortunately, I'm sure there's a lots of burning questions that we can get to, and hopefully we can do more of these. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. The last question here is from MacJack, and she asked, "What is Epic's long-term vision for UEFN over the next 5 years?" And how will we monetize, or how will monetization tools and discovery evolve to ensure a sustainable ecosystem?
I love that's your last question and it has to be quick.
Yeah, maybe the first part. That was really
like
good.
a 30-minute answer.
Yeah, I know.
What are we doing?
So what is the vision? Like the vision is like it is to make continue to expand Fortnite ecosystem, like Fortnite broadly, to be for every gamer of on every platform, right? If we didn't have mobile challenges, we want to be excellent on mobile. I think that's a huge thing for us. And part of our vision is like, yes, people should be able to play the games in Fortnite on every platform. So that's one side. The other side of it is that the tools can make any game you would want to make. Right now, they don't. Like we're still like we have a tremendous challenge on just getting the platform to both be stable on one side, expand in functionality in the other side, and build for the future. We've made a commitment that we're building something that is like the foundation of not just of Epic, but what we believe is like a large, scalable substrate of content, right? So like we can say metaverse, or we can call it whatever we want to call it, but it is like a giant place for any piece of entertainment can exist, right? It's why we're partnering with Disney. It's why we're partnering with Lego. They share the same vision that really, like, if we take a player-centric approach, then it makes sense. There should be minimal friction to get to content, and you should be able to see all content, right? So that platform is not like it just takes time, right? So 5 years from now, we hope that like from an Unveil perspective, that you click a publish and say, I want to publish into the Fortnite ecosystem. I want to publish on my own into Epic Game Store or whatever it's standalone thing. But it's the same engine essentially. Like that's a big part of it is closing the feature gap on that, and then changing how development works into sort of a modern scalable world where you can imagine thousands of players flowing between like millions of pieces of content, right? That's one. On the monetization side, we feel really good about where we're at right now, where we're able to just focus on if players love the content, then proportionally that's the value you generate, and that's how we reward it. And Fortnite players are like this. They're telling us with everything they do that's how it works. That they don't care what they play. If they're fun, then over time they invest into the ecosystem. Like they want outfits, they want songs, they want cars, like all the things that we offer in the store. And sort of proportionally that value gets distributed amongst all the islands that people play. So we think the schema works really well. Like, are there going to be new monetization options later? Yeah, there will be. But for now, we think avoiding sort of the pitfalls of a pay to play is just really, really important to us. Like we think that's how we're going to grow a healthy ecosystem. It's how we're gonna get players of all shapes and sizes, ages, geography, cultures, like to come in and fall in love with what hundreds of millions of people have already fallen in love with. It is if it's a welcoming place. It's why we take ratings, moderation, like all these things very serious, because that's the only way to build a sustainable place is to what did Kent say, weed the garden or whatever what you call it. It's to understand that we have a responsibility as we grow this to get the platform in order, get the engine in order, get motivation, discover, like all pieces of it. Yeah, like you should scrutinize us. You should be upset when we make mistakes because it's built for you. Like it's not built just for Epic. Like certainly not.
I think that the Saxs went high level. I'll go super tactical. I think for me, it's transparency and agency. Transparency, so you understand what's happening, and you can get to you don't have to make a conspiracy theory. You can actually see, hey, this is why this happened for this reason. And then agency, meaning that you as a creator have agency to drive your own discover, agency to drive your own economy, agency to build whatever game you dream of. And right now, we know we need to be more transparent and we need to give you more agency so you can actually execute your vision. I think those are the two big arcs that at least our team thinks about all the time and how we can deliver that to you all.
Like Kent and I are on the same team. I float ethereal land and Kent gets down to brass tacks. Like
someone's got to do the work. So
Yeah. the whole package is good. No, look, thank you. This was awesome. Before I throw out the intro, do either of you want to have anything to say, or if you want to? If not, we're good.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Awesome. Like we loved it. Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. So yeah, let's get into the outro here. So seriously, thank you for joining us on this Let's Chat About Fortnite Ecosystem. I'm Matthew Zanazzo, aka Immature, and I want to extend my sincere gratitude to Epic for hosting this talk and addressing our community directly. I also want to thank our guests, Saxs and Kent. I also want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you so much. And seriously, as a proud member of this community, I truly appreciate everyone who submitted questions and spoke up about the issues that matter. Your voices drive us forward, and it's been an honor to help represent you. Seriously. So again, thank you once again for being a part of this important dialogue. And until next time, this is always how I sign off. If you know me, don't hate, create.
The first of many. Thank you so much, Mature. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
You.
Take care.